Hello students, greetings of the day. Hope you are all at the best of your healths. I, Mrs. Usha Vasani, welcome you all to the RKC online social studies class. Today we are going to study chapter number 6, hot deserts. As I told you in my previous video that I have divided this chapter in 4 parts. So today we will study another part of this lesson. So today's learning would be on the different topic. So now let's get started on our exciting journey of exploring desert sitting at home. The learning objectives of today's learning would be to study and understand the climate of hot deserts, to learn how the plants have adapted themselves to the life in the desert. But basically, children, we are going to talk about mainly the hot deserts. So now let's begin with the learning. Let us do a small recap on what is a desert. Basically, a desert is an arid, that is very dry, so arid or semi-arid biome. They get less than 25%, that is less than 10 inches of rainfall per annum. Another source defines it as any region that can be a moisture deficit over the course of a period of year, can also called be a desert. Basically, the desert land surfaces are like only stones, sand dunes, or if we talk about the higher latitude area, they are full of snow. But mainly or basically the area which is dry is known as desert. We have also discussed in the previous video that basically the deserts are found on the north side and the south side of equator, that is between 15 degree to 30 degree of the latitudes, and those areas receive direct rays of the sun, and much more part of that area near Tropic of Cancer or Tropic of Capricorn, majorly all the deserts are found there. Though there are polar deserts also, which we talked in our previous video. So that was all we studied in the previous video. We also studied about the types of deserts. Basically, there are 3 types of deserts, that is hot deserts, temperate deserts and cold deserts. Some of the examples of hot deserts are Sahara Desert, Kalahari Desert, Australian Desert, Atacama Desert of South America, Mexican Desert of Mexico, Thar Desert of India. Those are the examples of hot deserts. Of course, Atacama Desert is an example of temperate desert also, because some part of South America there is snow at times, so it is considered as a temperate desert also. Then some cool deserts or cold windy desert, that is you can say temperate as well as cold desert. Gobi Desert of Mongolia is in the China, and that is an example of cold windy desert, that is temperate desert. And very cold desert, that is the largest cold desert is Antarctica. Of course, the desert which is in the polar area are the examples of cold desert. One of the examples of cold desert is tundra in Russia. So that is all we discussed in our previous video. Now today we are going to study something different. This was all about the recap of previous video. What is the climate like in the desert? A feature of the desert sky is that there are no clouds. Means the sky above the desert, why there are no clouds? As because there are no water bodies, there are no trees, and because there are no water bodies, there is no evaporation happening, and because there is no evaporation taking place, there is no water vapor which rises above and it condenses and then forms the cloud. So that process is not happening. Other thing is there are almost no trees, there are less number of trees, and because there are no trees, there is again no moisture bearing winds which are taking place there, and hence there are no clouds formation about that. So the typical feature of the desert sky is that there are no clouds. Because of that, in the daytime the desert heats up rapidly, and at the night, since the sky is clear, it also cools down very rapidly. So, in one word, if anybody asks you, or if I ask you as a question, that what is a climate like in the desert, answer in one word, the answer should be that desert have an extreme climate. Means it is very hot during the daytime and it also cools down very rapidly during the night time. So this is the main feature of the climate in the desert. So mainly what could be the temperature in the desert? The temperatures in the hot deserts are among the highest in the world. During the day, it is generally very hot and the temperatures may soar up to 50 degrees Celsius. But at the same time, during night time, the temperatures drop down rapidly and may go down to even 10 or less than 10 degree, even though it is the summer season. So basically, in the desert, the temperature is very distinct. Means during the daytime, it soars above 50 or at least up to 50 degree Celsius, and at the same place as the night time, at the night time, the temperature drops down to 10 or less than even 10 degree at times. Let us study some of the common features of the desert pertaining to the climate mainly. The common feature of desert is that there is very little rainfall. In some deserts like Atacama, it does not rain for years, or rather I can say that in some parts of Atacama there is no rainfall recorded till date. So the dry and barren area of Atacama is, though it is very dry, but so many people live there. The desert receives less than 1 millimeter of rainfall per year, and some parts of the desert have not recorded rainfall at all. So here, this is all about the climate of the desert. Children, due to the dry climate, means how does it affect? That is, the dry hot winds which come from the sea part that comes, and because of the high mountains at times, the air or the moisture bearing winds cannot reach to the leeward, that is LEEWARD, leeward direction, that is the opposite direction of the mountain, and hence there is no rain or a very little rainfall happening there. So there is almost no rainfall taking place there, and that is why those regions are very dry. Because of the wind, the dry wind, because of that wind, it at times take away the topsoil of the area, and the land becomes more and more barren. Because the topsoil is taken away or blown away by the wind, the land becomes so barren that there is very little part of rain or the underground water, and that is why the trees cannot grow. Few types of trees only grow there. due to all such reasons, there is very hard life in the desert area. Children, I want you all to understand that why this dry area is a very hard life. We studied about the climate just now, that due to the less of moisture bearing winds on such areas, the the deserts are formed actually. Now, I will also would like to discuss some of the plant life which is growing there. So now in our next slide, I will tell you about the plant life also. But before that, I want you to see a small video, and you will understand better that what is the climate type or what is the climate like in the desert. So let us watch a small video and then we will proceed towards the plant life of the desert area. So watch the video and be very attentive, or else take a paper and pencil and jot down some points which helps you remember what you have studied about the climate of the desert area. So watch the video and then we will proceed for the plant life.
Climate of desert. The desert regions remains hot and dry throughout the year. In summers, the nights are cool and days are hot. In winters, the days are warm and the nights are very cold. There is very little rainfall in this region because the Aravalli Hills lie in the direction of rain-bearing winds and are not able to stop the winds to cause rain. In the deserts, wind shifts sand from one place to another to form small mounds called sand dunes. Sometimes, strong winds blow away the sand with great speed. They are called sandstorms. The winds cause great damage to the soil. They blow away the topsoil. This type of damage to the soil is called soil erosion. Due to soil erosion, the large area of desert is dry and barren. Trees do not grow in the desert because the climate is very hot and dry and it rains little. Sometimes it does not rain for many years. It has scattered bushes and thorny shrubs at some places. At some places, palm, babool, cactus and thorny kikar are also found. These plants require little water. The farmers grow wheat, gram, jowar and bajra on their fields. The government has set up our country's largest wheat farm at Suratgarh. Water is, however, found at some places in the desert. The water comes mostly from small amount of rainwater that collects in streams and ponds or underground water that comes to the surface and forms a pool. This pool is called an oasis. An oasis is a fertile spot in desert. Most of the villages in deserts come up around such an oasis. Date palm trees are found at such places.
Children, now let us talk about the plant life in desert. Desert plants have adapted to the living in desert climates. Some plants are able to store water. Plants have adapted to saving water. Some plants have waterproof covering that prevents the plants or seeds of drying out. Now children, wherever you live or wherever you happen to go permanently, it should be the law, or it should be that you should be flexible and adaptable to the situation around you. Now for example, if you are taken for a trip out and there you have to take bath with cold water. Of course, daily in your house you might be taking bath with a little warm water or somebody with the hot water. But there, if you don't adapt the situation or be flexible to it, you will be thrown out. So the same carries, or same thing is for everyone, for every life, that if you are adaptable or if you are flexible, you can survive, otherwise you will be left nowhere. Let me tell you one short story of adaptability and flexibility. Now, once upon a time, in a lost land of tropical forests, on the top of the only hill in that region, trapped inside an old volcanic crater system, lived the last ever group of large, ferocious dinosaurs. For thousands and thousands of years, they had survived all the changes on the earth, and now, led by the greatest Ferocitosaurus, they were planning to come out of hiding and again then they wanted to dominate the world one more time. You all must have seen the movies of dinosaurs of Red, or must have heard that they were the largest creature on the earth and they would dominate on the life of the earth. So now, Ferocitosaurus was an awesome Tyrannosaur Rex who had decided that they had spent too much of time isolated from the rest of the world. So over a few years, the dinosaurs worked together, demolishing the walls of the great crater. When the work was done, all the dinosaurs carefully sharpened their claws and teeth in readiness to terrorize the world once again. On leaving their homes of thousands of years, means they were living in that crater on the high hill. So after a long time leaving their home, everything was new for them, very different to what they had been used to living inside the crater. However, for days the dinosaurs continued on resolute. Finally, from the top of some mountains, they saw a small town the other side. Its houses and townsfolk seemed like tiny dots for them. Never having seen human beings before, the dinosaurs kept and they leapt down the mountains, ready to destroy anything that would stood in their way. However, they approached that little town. The houses were getting bigger and bigger as they were coming closer. And when the dinosaurs finally arrived, it turned out that the houses were much bigger than the dinosaurs themselves. A boy who was passing by said, "Daddy, Daddy, I have found some tiny dinosaurs. Can I keep them?" And such a life, the terrifying Ferocitosaurus and his friends ended up as the pets for the village children. Imagine that. They must be so tiny, but they were thinking themselves to be so huge and large. Seeing how millions of years of evolution had turned their species into midget dinosaurs, that is, very tiny dinosaurs, small sized, they learned that nothing lasted forever, and that you must always be ready to adapt. Do you realize that everything changes a bit slowly? How do you suppose will be your life in the world when you grow up? We cannot control nor avoid many of those changes, but we can start others. What do you like to change? Let us think about it. Now, children, talking about adaptability and flexibility, even the current situation where we all are terrified by coronavirus. We all have started living with coronavirus. We have started wearing masks, which we never used to earlier. We would feel that something is hindering our breathing process or our eating process, but now slowly we are adapting that discipline of wearing mask, wearing gloves, not eating outside, staying inside the house as much as possible, not getting exposed to the other areas where not needed. So here, coming back to the point, adaptability wherever you are, in whatever type of species you are, may you are animal, human or the plant life, you have to adapt where you are supposed to be. So adaptability is the best choice. Okay, so now let us understand more about the vegetation or the plant life of desert. I hope you have understood the concept of being flexible. So now, talking about the plant life and the climate, how the vegetation have adapted the climate. The extreme climate of the desert ecosystem means that plants and animals have had to adapt to survive. Vegetation had to adapt to extreme temperatures, lack of water and high rates of evaporation. As I explained you through a short story, that if that dinosaur would not have accepted the change, that they were thinking that they were the huge or the largest species, but as they came down from the mountain they realized that they are very tiny, and the children of that village thought of keeping them as a pet. So then they adapted, then they accepted the change that they are no more the largest species in the world, and there are some species larger than them also, and they accepted that change just to survive. So in the same way, if the change is accepted, only then we can survive. So here the extreme climate is accepted by the plant life, and only then such plants can survive in the harsh climate of deserts. Main adaptations are: vegetation has leaves that are very small and only grow after it rains, means they are very small or have no leaves at all. This helps to reduce water loss. Plants either have long root system, spread out wide, or go deep into the ground to absorb water. Plants have short life cycles. They germinate following rainfall, grow flowers and die within a short pace of time. For example, 1 year. This helps them avoid drought. Some plants have spines to discourage animals from eating plants for water and reduce water loss through transpiration. Many plants are slow growing. This requires less energy. The plants don't have to make as much food and therefore do not lose as much water also. Students, let us talk about some plants that are succulents. Succulent means the tender, juicy or tasty. Now, for example, having thick fleshy leaves or stems which are adapted to storing water. So such plants which are succulents and store the water in their leaves, stems or roots. An example of this is the cactus. Cacti also have spines instead of leaves. These minimize surface area and helps reduce moisture loss through transpiration during the daytime. The spines also protect the cacti from being eaten by animals. They also have a waxy coating on stems to help reduce water loss. So students, we discussed that the plants which grow here, they do not have leaves, but instead they have the spine-like structure. The stems are thick and fleshy and can store water for the plant. Mostly we find shrubs with small leaves and thorny bushes in this desert area. Some of the examples are like we discussed about cactus, then acacia, babool, kikar, date palms, and the most important is the baobab tree, which is almost, we don't find this type of tree in India, but it is found in the Kalahari Desert of Africa and also in the Great Australian Desert. The trunk of this tree is barrel shaped, as you can see on the screen, that you can see the tree which looks like a big barrel, and it has got few trunks over that barrel shaped, and it becomes hollow inside as it gets older and older. This tree has got a very long life. Water is stored in the hollow, and in one tree trunk it is said that over 1000 liters of water can be stored. Imagine how huge it must be in reality if we get to see it. The baobab tree is also known as the national tree of Madagascar. Madagascar is a place of Africa, and there it is known as, or it is famous as, the national tree of Madagascar. So children, this is all about today's learning. Today we learnt about the weather in the desert, that is extremes. This means that the days are very hot and the nights are very cold. Deserts receive very little or no rainfall. We also saw a video which might have helped you making the concept very clear in your mind. Then we studied about the vegetation which is found here is adapted to the climate, and also heard a story which will help you understand what is adaptability or being flexible. So the plants here are adapted to the climate and has special features such as long roots, no leaves, thorns and thick stems. Shrubs and bushes are generally found here. So this is all about today's learning. This is all about today's learning. I hope this video will help you understand the concept of hot deserts, the climate and the plant life of hot desert. Keep watching this video again and again, which will help you understand the concept properly. See you soon with another learning video, and I end up my session now. Thank you. Stay safe. Keep learning.